planner and working with high net worth investments plus $10 million client investment portfolios that we had to do. So very high net worth. I've done numerous seminars like this for you guys for high net worth clients at numerous banks, and very fun sort of events actually. So even though I'm a branch manager now and dealing with that and leading other people, I'm not going to speak to you directly about your individual bank accounts. I'm going to talk to you more about your saving and not focus on the accounts and products. So it's more about the strategies in between them. I'm not here to try to sell you anything. So let's just get that out of the way too. My goal is to make sure that you leave with some sort of advice and some sort of answer to all your questions that you have, and focus on, it seems like, the budgeting category, money management. So before I really get into it, any sort of housekeeping idea things. No raising hands. None of that stuff need to be. I might ask you for high fives or to agree and nod, because I can see you guys pretty easily because we have a small group. But you can manage your own mute, bounce in and out when you need to, and wave on the screen if you're talking. You don't think I can hear you, so I can see you there too, right? Diane is going to be bouncing through a lot of slides here, so I'm going to be bouncing her. So I get her to move ahead 2 slides for me, I believe, and then we'll make sure we're on the right page here. So yeah, okay, perfect. So in here, imagine winning. Like, we'll start with some fun stuff. Imagine winning $1 million. We all dream about this time to time. I'm pretty sure we'd all figure out how we'd spend it. How would it impact your life? What could it do negatively to impact your life? There's a lot of interesting stories around that. So I'm going to ask you guys, what would you do, since we have the 3 of you here, right? We have Eric, Arisha, and Marissa. Eric, I'm going to go with you. What would you do first if you won $1 million? And Arisha and Marissa, I'm coming to you next, so be prepared.
Well, since I'm a musician, basically, I play piano, so I'm thinking, because my goal is to become a great concert pianist, and so, like, in order to do that, I need to have a vast repertoire range, like a really extensive and broad repertoire. Like a lot of composers I need to study. So I'll probably spend a lot of on the scores, like buying books and also reading about them, the composers and the pieces. So I think, I don't know if that will spend all of it, but basically that's I guess I'll do that.
No, that's good. You don't want to spend all of it. That's a good point there too. And then you're investing in yourself more on a skill set too, right? So we're going to get into that too, as well as we move down the path. But believe it or not, I'm a big classical fan too, and I go to a lot of concerts. So maybe I'll see you there one day. Arisha, what would you do with $1 million? 10 million, sorry. That's right. $1 million is nothing nowadays.
Oh yeah, so first of all, it would be amazing, and I would like to spend it on like my liabilities and maybe invest it towards my assets and in making more assets for myself that could make more money over time.
Very interesting. Right in the saving mindset there. Good for you. Figured out how you can grow the wealth. Good job. Marissa, what about yourself? What would you like to see if you won that million? 10 million, sorry. I keep saying $1 million. Back in my day, $1 million was a lot of money.
For me, I would probably, kind of like Arisha, I would invest in like property actually. Me and my friends always kind of talk about that. Probably just in things that could make me money over time. Probably start out small, like parking lots, maybe laundry mats, some things that I know that would actually accumulate like money over time. Probably pay off any school loans, and I would hire someone like you to help me manage the rest of the money, because I hope to accumulate more from what I have.
Yeah, good. You guys are all leaning towards that that net worth side of things where you're trying to want to grow your assets there. So no, very good. A lot of very good unique answers there. But you guys all have one thing in common where you want to grow your wealth. Normally I get, when I do these seminars, I'm like, oh, I buy that new Ferrari, that place in Hawaii. Maybe that's where you want to buy the investment property, but I get a lot of like destination and spending. So I'll get you to move to the next slide for me, Diane. So what we're looking at here is I'm going to tell you a story of somebody, a couple different people who won the lottery, and how they spent their money. So I'm going to narrate this here for you, and then we'll ask some questions about it. So her name is Sharon Chirabassi. It's a real person. So in 2004, Sharon was a regular person, like this guy you see here sitting on the bus, going about his regular life, lived in Hamilton, Ontario, raising her family. She won $10.5 million and became so-called rich, right? She bought a big fancy house, fancy cars, designer clothes, fancy trips, lavish parties, handouts to friends and families, because you know people are going to ask you for money when you win that money. And then with 3 years, Sharon has spent half of that 10.5. And then over the remaining 6, the rest was gone in terms she spent it. So in 9 years, Sharon went from being super rich with that $10 million back to being regular. Could you imagine spending all that or losing all that money in that sort of time frame? Now, back to reality, Sharon now rides the bus to her part-time job, and she actually says she feels happier now than when she had the money. So her life tends to have more purpose now than when she had that money. So what Sharon's story shows, no matter how much money you have, it's kind of like you guys have indicated how you're going to use it to maybe manage to accumulate more wealth and increase that net worth or some sort of cash flow item in there, right? Invest in yourself. So I'll get you to move slides again for me, Diane. So when you do manage the money properly, you have like amazing rewards. I'm going to tell you another story. And this one is not about a guy who won the lottery. This one's a story about another person named Sean Cooper. He was in the news because he used his financial savviness and dedication to reach his goal of paying off his mortgage as soon as he could. It ended up taking him, and you want to throw a guess how long it took this guy to pay off $225,000? Throw it a year for me. Number of years. 10 years, 15 years, 20 years?
5 years.
Sorry, what was that?
5 years.
5 years? 3 years? Who said 3?
Me.
Oh, good. So 3 years and 2 months. Now, regularly, a mortgage takes, I would say, 20 years for somebody who's budgeted. But what I see regularly in my day-to-day, people are stretching that out to 30 years now to pay off mortgage. So he bought his house when he was 27 years old and paid it off when it was 30. Now, absolutely amazing. On a side note, Sean has written a book called Burn Your Mortgage. So it's a great way to learn how he did it. So how he did it, just a summary quickly. He worked 3 jobs, lived very frugally in his basement, and he rented out the top level of his house. He rode his bike to work and prepared all of his meals, didn't eat out. He made a lot of social sacrifices, didn't go out to events with friends and family if it was going to end up costing him. It was definitely not an easy goal for Sean to hit, but it required him to have focus, planning, and discipline to hard work. But his reward now, he's 30 years old and he doesn't have a mortgage. So these are both really good examples showing you, it doesn't matter what situation you're in, it's important to save, but saving isn't easy. So Dan, I'm just gonna move to the next slide for me. Yeah, paper notes and everything here. So tell me, why do you think, or even for yourselves, if you've saved money already, put money aside, what sort of difficulties do you find get in the way, either yourselves or other people, to save money? And I can throw one out there for you when you're stuck, but I can just say student tuition, but I'll let you guys go from the rest. What else would get in the way?
I would say underemployment, not having enough money coming in. Sometimes it's hard to save.
Yeah, it's a big one too, if you don't have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, Arisha, Marissa, what do you
Kind
guys
of
got?
not managing like needs and wants.
Yeah. So what would some of your needs be versus wants?
Well, paying some of my own bills, like my phone bill and just anything else. Chipping in for like groceries. And then like want would just be more so just like things that I do with my friends or like eating out most of the time.
Or
So
that fancy new phone too. I perfectly agree with you. So, right, like even when you say eating out, I guarantee you a lot of people thinking right now is with friends, everybody's kind of getting that hungriness going on. So we know it's important to save that money. We all know it is, and it can be really hard. But these small little things that we can do will add up, and we'll see things that you do so regularly and so small that if you just change just these small little things, how much it can add up. Um, so what are some items, and we all have, they're all going to be different and similar. What are some of the items that you guys would have that you would, I say, spend regularly, like maybe daily? I know you mentioned you had a phone bill, so that's probably monthly, but what are some like very almost day-to-day things that you guys would spend money on?
bus fare.
Yeah, bus would be a good one. So transportation.
Food.
Yeah, like eating out food or making food at home.
I guess both.
How many of you go out and get a coffee or drink coffee or tea daily or fancy drinks from Starbucks or Tim Hortons?
Guilty.
How much do those go for now?
Depends on what you get, but you're looking at 5 to 6, 650 per drink.
Five to 650. Wow. Anybody just drink basic coffee now? It's like, what was it, like $1.80? I think it was like a cheap coffee at Tim Hortons. So I'm gonna switch to the next slide, and we're gonna show you how things add up. So normally I do a presentation like this, I'd have a chalkboard and everything, and be in class or in a big room, but COVID's kind of adapted us to be a little digital, and we're trying things out. So I'm gonna get you to follow along with me here. So we'll keep something simple. So we'll go with coffee, and coffee being two bucks for a basic coffee, because I want to show you what $2 can do. So if you buy a coffee, whether you're in school, work, or just day to day, I remember when my university days, I'd have a coffee every morning, and sometimes I was fighting to try to buy it. 5 days a week, so one coffee, 5 days a week at $2 is $10 a week. How many 2 weeks in a year? We have 52, right? So do math on that. Who wants to shout out the number of what that annual cost is going to be? We know it's 520, right? 52 times 10, so $2 a coffee, 5 days a week was $10, 52 weeks in a year, $520 a year. Now, if we're going to switch that to Starbucks coffee, we're looking at about $1,300 a year to $1,600 a year. Does that shock you? What would you do with $500 to $1,300? What could you do instead of drinking coffee? Like, now that I'm telling you this, if you any of you do this, any of you do this, if I told you, oh, if you didn't do that, you'd have $500 to $1,300. What would you spend the 513 bucks on if you could? Maybe a want.
A vacation that's like just enough money to go away for a week.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And all you had to do was not drink coffee, right? So a lot of little different things there, right? So with these things that you do, they have frequencies, right? So how much do you how often do you do these? So I want you to think about how often do you do these things, right? So is it coffee? Are we buying them daily, weekly? Is it a gym membership? Some gym memberships are bi-weekly versus monthly, right? And are these things necessary, right? So I know, Eric, you mentioned buying food, right? Sometimes you go to lunch or dinner, and or you spend anywhere from 25 to 50 bucks, right? Now you do that same math on if you go once a week, $50. $50 times 52. Now you're at $2,600 a year just to go to lunch or dinner with your buddies once a week. So there's small amounts of money, but they add up. And then, Shannon, to your point, $2,600 now is even more money to go for a longer trip, or a fancier one, more lavish one, where you can drink all that coffee for that 1 week. So the goal is not to make you like feel bad about spending. It's just to make you realize that these small little things add up, and as they add up, they accumulate at this point where it would be eating that opportunity for you to save. So Dan, I'll get you to move to the new slide for us. So everybody here, I'm pretty sure has either heard or know what a mantra is, right? It's basically a phrase, typically in a positive manner, meant to motivate you. So on our screen there, we got a bunch of different mantras there, right? Like no pain, no gain. We've all heard that one. Actions speak louder than words. You got to be in it to win it. And the one we're going to really lean on today is right in the center. Save today, choose tomorrow. And what does that mean? What does that mean to you guys when you hear that as a positive mantra? Save today, choose tomorrow. Who wants to tell me? Who wants to be brave enough to tell me what they think that means?
Is it that like if you save whatever money you have right now and then you can choose to buy even more basically the next day instead of spending it? Yeah.
No, I think you're on the right track, right? So it means like like you said, if you save now, think of it this way. So when you save now, and it could be over years, it could be when that opportunity presents itself, you'll be able to choose to buy that item or spend that money or do that thing or not without having to worry too much, right? So going back to that math we just did, have $2 of coffee 5 days a week, $520 a year, and then if we turn it to Starbucks, it's $1,300 a year. If you choose not to have that coffee and save that $2, it adds up to that $520 to $1,300. Now you have an opportunity to use that for something else, or choose to use that for something else, right? So this is where you can change things. This is where you can change frequency, right? So if you have the coffee every other day instead, so half the amount of time, your 520 goes to 250, or your 1300 goes to about 680, right? So it's how you do it, and it's how you plan to make sure that you're ready for those opportunities that come up in your future. So it could be that new trip, it could be new trip, which is bigger expense, new car, even bigger expense, new home, or it could be right down to that new computer for yourself, Eric, new piano, and Shannon for a new trip, right? So it could be those individual things there, where your frequency, amount you save, and where you get the money from. So everything you buy in life is going to cost you money, and you're going to need to save for them. You don't want to be coming to me at a bank and borrowing money, right? We'll get to that later too. All right, so I'm going to move to the next slide there for me, Diane. Thanks. All right, did I skip ahead? I might have. Yeah, skip one more. I already did that slide in the background without telling you. Sorry. So I'm pretty sure a lot of us at some point in life are probably thinking transportation, so possibly a vehicle, college, university. We're probably gonna have people getting married, buying a home, whether it be for yourself or for business purposes, having kids one day. These things all cost money. And then I want you now to think about, let's think about the university, getting married, buying a house, having those kids, how much these things might cost. So just kind of thinking in your head a little bit about it, because I'm going to ask you what you think it costs. So like, how much does it cost, not to necessarily buy the car, it's not the car itself, to own it. We're talking about like the gas, insurance, parking, maintenance when it breaks down, snow, winter tires versus summer tires, all those things. School, how much does tuition cost a year? We know going to school how it might not just be tuition. There's books, there's the technology, my new laptop. If I'm living on residence, there's residence. Now there's food costs again. We're back at that, right? Getting married, how much does that cost? How much does the wedding cost for 50 people versus 250 versus 1,000? Because we know some weddings can get up there in numbers. How much does that cost? What about buying a home? How does that cost? How much does that cost? What part of the city do you want to live in? Because location makes a big difference in terms of cost to that. And then if you choose to buy a house in a certain location, does it have the amenities? Like, so do I have access to a school, or now am I going to have to drive to go to school? So now you're going to change cost elsewhere. And then having a family, how much does it cost to raise a kid from 0 to being 18, to the point that maybe your parents move you into the basement or kick you out, right? So same sort of mentality. What does that cost? So now I'm going to ask you, what do you think it costs, just on average? Let's go to the car first, I guess. What does it cost on average for a car for the year? So managing that car for the year, maintenance, maybe you have a payment on it too as well. So what does that look like? Who wants to jump in and tell me that? Throw a number out there. You can make it round or not.
Sorry, this is assuming that you haven't paid off the car, right?
You got it. You bought it. You're either leasing it or financed it. Like, so either bought it through loan or you're borrowing it. So you have like a rental cost. So you'd have to include that.
$200.
$200 a month, you're saying, right, Eric?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be 24 a year, right? 2,400.
Yeah.
Anybody else have another guess they want to throw out there? I'll take one more from
350.
350 monthly, so a little bit more. So we're looking at probably just over 4,000 or 5,000. What if I told you it's on average, the average number for owning or renting a car? So that's what leasing is. We're talking gas, insurance, parking, any sort of maintenance you might have is closer to $11,000 annually. Does that number shock you guys? It shocks me when I did this presentation. I was like, wait a minute, how much money am I spending on stuff? And then I went back and I recalculated my gas, and I was like, holy cow, I'm spending $3,700 a year just on gas to drive to Waterloo? Like, maybe it's better for me to relocate. So a lot of you guys are probably going to go to school. We kind of have an idea. You probably have an idea what tuition costs. What's your estimate of annual cost for school? If you go to like university, college, any sort of unique program of trades, chef school, learning from the specialized different composers there for you, Eric. What do you think that's going to cost you?
10,000.
10,000. Okay, we got 10,000. Who else is it?
Yeah.
That's from Marissa, right?
Yeah.
Arisha or Eric?
$15,000.
Okay. So you guys are on the right track. So we know tuition is what? Probably 6 to 10, depending on the program per year. 6 to 10,000. What about living expenses? But I think you guys hit living expenses bang on. So living expenses is probably 10 to 15 on top of that tuition. That's including your books, that new fancy laptop you might want. We know a lot of people like to change those every couple of years too, right? Because it'll be up to date. Probably want a new phone too, to connect with all of your group chats and doing these Zoom meetings. So it adds up quickly. What do you think an average wedding costs for 31 people? Sorry, not 31 people, for 150 people. It's like a mid-sized wedding nowadays. If you have a big family, it's going to be more.
20,000.
20, okay, that's pretty good. So we're up there. The way I always do math on that is about $150 per person. So I do 100, 150, depending on, whereas some places you go to, just the dinner alone could cost $100. So you can get up there alone, not including your photographer, your videographer, and flowers, and every other thing that you're gonna set up to, and any traditions you gotta pay for too. Because we know those, they look free, right? But they all cost. What about buying a house? Let's use let's use our favorite city of Toronto as an example for buying a home. What do you think? You've probably heard what it is, but what do you think like an average cost of a small home, like a detached home in Toronto would cost?
$1 million?
It's one of the answers I was looking for. It's actually this is where I knew I'd catch you guys off guard, because Toronto, everybody's like million or higher. We're probably looking for like a detached small little house about 730 to get into the market. Also depends on the neighborhood too. So when we hear in the news and media, we hear a lot of the large, big fancy neighborhoods. So a lot of opportunity there. Now, last one, kids. What does kids look like? From 0 to 18 years. So that means you're running them through high school to the point that you're at now. How much do you think you cost, for lack of a better term?
That's so hard because I had to get braces, which were like $8,000.
Whoa.
So including
I,
everything else, it's like wild.
so what do you think then, Marissa?
Maybe like 30,000
Per year, maybe. So I like how you brought up the braces, because that's a cost, right? So that's one of the things that you have to think about, and these are things that can happen too as well. But it's actually $250,000, so 250,000 per kid. So if you see people with family of fours, that's what it adds up on average per individual from 0 to 18. Clothes, food, everything, and that doesn't include like the sports and activities and camps that people go to too as well, right? So sometimes the best thing to do is leverage your city for a lot of those things too. So it adds up. So we can kind of, I'm gonna get moving on here to speed up a little bit, right? So this is where we get to that mantra where it's like say today and then choose tomorrow, right? So figuring out those things today so that we can have that choice or opportunity available to us down the road, right? So we got that wedding. We'll be ready for that wedding. We'll be ready for that car purchase. We'll be ready for that. This day and age, life in society here costs us money. We know that. It all costs us money. It's the society we live in. We just need to set you up, and you need to set yourself up for success so you can benefit in this society. So being part of the seminar and learning about this, you're already one step ahead of the game from a lot of people. And being myself in banking many, many years, I see the struggles that adults have and that in their 50s still don't get it. So even some of the simple principles we're going through today. I know that might shock you that you're like, well, what are you talking about? These adults, they know everything, right? They have houses, they have cars. A lot of them have houses and cars and don't know how they acquire them. I worked in Oakville, in a very affluent neighborhood in Oakville. There's a lot of big fancy cars driving around, big houses. And I can tell you the average person in debt there that I would see that coming to the bank were about $1.2 to $1.8 million in debt. So that Land Rover, that $140,000 Tesla they're driving down around the road is not really owned by them.
And Julian, can I ask, sorry, is that $1.8 million also including their mortgage, or is it that just their like consumer debt?
Yeah, it's including their mortgage. So on average, about 30% of that would be their consumer debt. So their mortgage would be like 1.3, 1.2, and they have $500,000 in stuff.
Wow.
Like just stuff.
I just kind of wanted to share something because
for sure.
I just bought a car and I bought it used. And me and my partner, we saved up from January until April when I lost my job. We saved together about $250 a month each, so $500 a month each to purchase the car. But also we were considering insurance, and for me, I like to keep my monthly expenses very low. We have rent to pay, we have internet and phone bills, so we also were like, okay, the reason why we came up with 250 almost amongst both of us, and then 500 basically a month, was because we wanted to make sure we can buy a car outright and also pay for the insurance outright as well. So we weren't juggling a lot of like big expenses at the end of the month every month. That just becomes stressful. And I think it's also important if you're in a relationship. I know I'm older, I'm like 30 now. I just turned 30 a couple weeks ago. But like it's also one of the biggest stresses on relationships and in family dynamics. So trying to figure out ways to work within your means is very important. Even when I was really, really young, like working my first few jobs, I used to save up for my winter coats, because winter coats are a huge expense. We know that now they're like, I know they're about 4 times the cost they were when I was like your age, 18, 19. But I would save like $50 every paycheck to be able to pay the $200 or $300 that the winter coat would end up costing. So it does matter to save. Then you can kind of be a little bit more flexible with what you want to get, and you can be a little bit more picky. But then you're also not stressing yourself out, and you're not at a loss when you do have to make a big purchase. So that's why I really appreciate this portion, to kind of like think about how much would this cost a week. The insurance alone for our car, for example, costs $2,500 for the year, right? So if we hadn't saved any money, we wouldn't be able to like even make the monthly payment versus like the whole year, right? It would just be a struggle. So that's just something to keep in mind from my now 30-year-old, 3 decades on the planet wisdom.
Happy belated. Don't worry, I'm older anyway, so I know exactly how you're feeling. But you bring up a good point, because you talk about the insurance, right? So you chose to save to get that opportunity, and that opportunity was, and this is a good point that you brought it up, was either to choose to pay monthly, which you could, but because you saved, you had the opportunity to choose to get it over with for the whole year and not worry about the year. So that's a great example of having that opportunity. So choose to save now so you can choose tomorrow. Save today to choose tomorrow. That's exactly what you did there, right? So by having that all saved up, you're able to choose to pay that insurance all in one shot, or you could have done it monthly. It was your option, right? You were fine either way. It was just your choice to do so. And when you save and you get that choice opportunity come up, normally when you have that option, you have more leverage in your hand too when you're negotiating with any sort of purchasing you're doing, because you have options. You're not bound by anybody. And you brought up another good point with relationships and finances. Very difficult from time to time. And I think the key thing, like it sounds like in your relationship, you have very good open communication. And that is where the key comes in there. Open communication with that, so everybody knows who's doing what, when, and why, right? And we talked about, you started going to the next point where we're talking about like sources of income, right? So we all know we get income from working. Where else can we get income from? Especially at your stage too. So somebody that's at your stage where you're just turning 18, university sort of phase, or coming to tuition, where do you guys get your income from other than working? Where could you get sources of money from?
Grants, bursaries.
So very education based. That's right. Those are definite things. That's a source of income.
Like my RSCP.
Yeah, that'll be a source. Good for your parents and guardians for setting that up. That's very good of them. It's also free money from the government in there too, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Scholarships.
Yeah, you guys are staying on the education side of things, eh? What about if you didn't get any of those things? Where else would you get income from? So job. Did any of you guys do chores at some point in your life? Did your parents be like, "Hey, can you clean the garage or attic or something, and I'm going to give you cut the grass"?
No.
Yeah, my parents were the same. They didn't believe in that. They just said, just do your work around the house if you want to live here. Sometimes one of the things a lot of people miss is gifts. Birthday money, Christmas money, holiday money, right? Eric, hopefully you had a good birthday with that, and you had some extra spending money there. So these are some common ways people get it, right? So I'm going to actually move to the next slide, Diane. So we're going to go through different types of work that normally come into play for students, right? So when we look at the different types of work, yeah, perfect. That's where I want you to be. We're going to look at this gentleman here, right? This guy works a few days a week. He works in the hospitality, fast food sort of industry. This is an example of formal work. So hospitality, fast food, formal work, meaning he gets a paycheck in a frequency, so maybe bi-weekly or monthly, and he pays taxes, already done, deducted. And it's regular because he knows when he's going to be getting that paycheck. So it either comes, like I said, every other week or bi-week or monthly. So this would be a former/regular job. So I get you to go to the next slide too. Another example of like another way a lot of students and young people get work is formal and irregular work. So this student here occasionally rakes leaves, does the weeds. This is very informal work. So meaning that they don't get a paycheck. They're most likely to be paid cash or e-transfer nowadays from whoever they work for. And the reason it's irregular is because it's only done when needed. So another big example of something like this would be babysitting for somebody and then getting paid. So you don't know when it's going to happen, and then you get paid in an informal manner, meaning cash. So you're not going to be paid tax on it, and it's irregular because you're only working when somebody calls upon you or it's needed. So I get you to the next slide. So then we go to example for next slide here. Retail clothing store, formal, irregular. So the reason this one's going to be that, this is a clothing store where this lady works, and she works as a relief employee. So she's kind of like a backup employee. There's so many different terms for these, right? Like the ones you would call in when somebody calls in sick. So she only works when you need extra people. So seasonal, sometimes come in, oh, we need people over the holiday season. So this is still formal employment. She's going to get an income off of this where she's going to pay taxes. So it'll be sort of norm of a paycheck or direct deposit, but it's irregular because she doesn't know consistently what her work is going to be like. Okay, so move to the last one. Next slide. So this next slide here, we will have, so this student here, young girl, she's, dad is a coach of a local soccer team. So she's got a side deal with her dad where she goes to work with dad for soccer for the 12 weeks of the whole season, sets up nets, does the drills, puts the pylons up, cleans up everything, and her dad pays her cash every week. So this income is regular, but it's informal because it's cash. So she's got almost like a verbal contract, even though it being her dad, she's got a verbal contract for a set period of time that she knows how much money she's going to make in that time, and the type of work/payment is informal because not like a regular paycheck. Dad's gonna give her cash for it. So I'm gonna get you moved to the next slide. So now you're earning income. We're gonna go over some strategies of how you can start saving. So we all know what life hacks are, right? I'm pretty sure I get some good head nods for you. I'm gonna get. Actually, can anybody share me what any life hacks they've done or used? We all know what life hacks are, right? Things that make things better for us or easier. You know what? When somebody asked me to think of this, it was actually tougher than I thought. But I'll give you an example. You go to the airport or anywhere, everybody has the same color suitcase. It's always like gray or black or something that when it gets dirty, it doesn't look dirty. And you always see the odd person too, sometimes with a very bright colored bag, easy to find and spot. But then a life hack would be like me going to get orange duct tape and wrapping a giant line around the bag. So we know that giant bag with the bag with a giant piece of duct tape wrapped around it, a line. It's easy to spot. So life hack, make my life a little bit easier at the airport. I don't have to wait and wonder if that's my bag and touching other people's bags, especially this day and age. Nobody wants to touch anything with COVID. So you want to make sure you're grabbing your bag and only your bag, right? So little life hack too, right? So a life hack's technique that makes your life easier and a lot better. But it's important to know that not all of them are equally created. I'll get you to switch to the next slide. So we look at next slide here, the car windshield. Windshield wiper's broken. Want to save money? You want to go buy new wipers with attach a string to it, and I'm just gonna use my arm to actuate the wipers while we're driving down the highway. Yeah, it's gonna save. Good life hack, save cost of repairs. I don't know if it's safe, so it's probably not the best idea. It's probably a pretty bad idea. Cracked phone screen or waterproofing your phone. Life hack. Throw the phone in a Ziploc bag. Wrap it in Saran wrap. Yeah, save you money, but probably not working too well, right? So these are like more over the top sort of things, but they're making your life easier is what you're trying to look for here, and better, but certain life hacks not always the case, which we see here. So I'm going to go over some life hacks that I'm going to recommend that are going to help you make good choices. So I'm going to get you to move the slide for me. So we're going to go to life hack number 1, pay yourself first. Does anybody know what that means?
I'll jump in and say, usually when people say pay yourself first, it means that before you, you know, pay a bill or pay something, you know, there's a portion of your earnings that you put away. It could be 10% that you just put in savings automatically. That's my bad way of explaining it.
No, that's like bang on what the right answer is. Pay yourself first, right? Put money aside before you do anything else. So simple, but nobody tends to do it. And I'll tell you why. We'll get to that at one point. But it's kind of like that whole mentality of, we know when we're like this image here, when you're on a plane, right? Some of us like it, some of us hate it. I enjoy flying. One of my favorite things to do, believe it or not. I like to be in control, but one of the fun things to do. And we all get that demo, whoever's been on a plane, of oxygen masks. What if you chose not to, quotations, pay yourself first? In other words, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? It's more of take care of yourself first, because once you take care of yourself, you can start looking at taking care of others, right? So that same principle applies to in a lot of things in life, where we're going to pay ourselves first here when we're looking at saving and sources of income. So I'll get you to the next slide. So generally when people have, when they have money, they tend to do the exact opposite of what Shannon just said. They don't put money aside for themselves. There's very few that do, but they tend to do opposite. You kind of, a couple of different categories there. You have spend, save, and give. So people tend to, I don't know, give money, loan it to parents for different items. They tend to spend first, which you see in the first category. Most people take all that money and will buy the newest thing, the new video game, that new fancy piano or composer's book, any of those new things first before they even touch the other categories. So the thing about, you have to decide first, well in advance before you get your paycheck, on how you're going to allocate and move this money. So you guys are going to be going through an order here a little bit differently. This is where you guys are going to save first, and then you're going to spend for yourself, and then this is where you'd like give and donate. So give and donate can also be charities, right? So it doesn't have to be like just friends and family. If you don't pay yourself first, you're going to find yourself at the end of the pay period or month with no money left over, no money left to save. So how many times have you guys like, you know what, I'm going to save some money up, and then you like, I'm going to go to friends, and I'm going to go for dinner with friends, I'm going to go buy this, I'm going to buy that, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I didn't save this month, there's nothing left over, I used it already. And this is what the cycle of most people get stuck into, especially in today's society, where everybody wants the newest, best, biggest, shiniest thing. So the question we are always asked is basically, how much should we be saving? So I get you to switch slides for me. So very simple, right? Small. Start off small, right? So we know like math is fun, but we're gonna keep it simple, right? So 10%. Let's say we just started with saving 10%, right? So we save 10%. It was basically a decimal. Everybody remembers decimals in school. 10% is 1/10. So if you had 100, just maybe delete the last number, and that's kind of what you have. So delete the last number, $10, 10 bucks, right? So have $180. 180 divided by 10 is $18. So 10% is 18. So example of how this is just an example of how you can try and save. It's just coming up with a simple percentage of how much you're going to pay yourself first and sticking to it. And then there's ways to amplify this too. So if you guys all decide on 10, 15, 20%, I'll get you to move to the next slide. You're going to get, if we use 180 bucks as an example, we're going to get $18 if we stick with 10. But you know what, saving $18, we all know it's kind of like minuscule. Why not round it up? So pay yourself first and round it up. So you're going to round up that $2, but you're like, oh, what does that $2 do? $2 doesn't do much, but if you remember back to that coffee, $2 was A week, $2 a day for 5 days a week over 52 weeks a year was over 500 bucks. So we know just that small amount will compound and get up there. So pay yourself first and give yourself that little extra. So let's go to the next saving hack. Sorry, I have a fly flying around my house here. Okay, last hack number 2. Now the tools for your savings to take place, right? I'm assuming you all have, by a raise of hands or wave, I'm assuming you all have some sort of bank account. Yeah, head nod for me. Yeah, I'm hoping you do, right? Good. Can you have more than one bank account?
Yes.
Why would you want more than one bank account?
Well, one that I have is like strictly for saving. The other one is like checking and more so just for like expenses and things that I need to pay for, like bills and stuff.
Good, you're organized. I like it. And then yes, like being a student, majority of the banks, not just here, all the banks kind of give you accounts for free anyway, especially when you're at the student stage, or very extremely low cost. So why not take advantage of it? And perfect example, starting off like Marissa just said, having like the 2 accounts, one checking, which we all know is called checking account because back in the day you used to write paper checks, which are almost obsolete nowadays. That's why it's called the checking account. So that's more of like your day-to-day account. And then the other account is your savings account, right? So that's where you put your money aside for this life hack. So this is the life hack where it's the tool for that 10% you save or whatever amount you put aside. So then we have people, I'll put my hand up for this. I work at a bank and I am a lazy saver. I will try to spend, as my wife would say, I will try to spend my money first before saving 100% of the time. And I still do this today. And when my paycheck comes in, I'm like, oh, what's left? I'm taking it. And I'll go buy the newest, fanciest toy during COVID or whatever it is. It's a lot of hobbies. I'm surprised I'm not kicked out yet. But this is where my lazy part, and I know I'm lazy and understanding that I'm lazy around that, is there's ways to automatically set these up. And any of the banks you guys deal with will have ways to set up where you can, the day you get paid, because if you're on a frequency schedule, if you're getting paid every Thursday or every other Thursday, you can have that bank and you can set a lot of this stuff up yourself online where it automatically takes 50 bucks from that paycheck and throws it into that savings account. That's how I save myself from spending. So that's how I pay myself first, because I know I'm lazy. I won't do it every week. I get the system and the tool in place to do it for me. So one of the many ways, there's numerous ways nowadays. They even have, and with technology, a couple of the banks have AI involved with this. They learn your spending habits and they move money automatically. So they see your money come in and you'll be sitting there on one of my accounts. I'll be sitting there, I get a transaction. What do you mean you moved $50 out of my account? Who moved $50? I look back, it's the automatic AI moving it between my accounts for me to try to save it. So it learns your saving patterns. So for you guys are at the beginning of this, you're gonna get to the point of where this gets really, really big and creative around that saving. So when they have that savings account set up, this is like a sidebar, but this is like almost like a third point. And this is why, like, we can just save 10, 15%. Why? Like, why do we do it, right? So what are you saving for? You really need to define the account. And this is why savings accounts, you can have many accounts as you want. Any account you can have, as many as you want, and you can set them up differently. I have a friend of mine who doesn't work at a bank and nor has no banking background. He probably has about 8 accounts for his savings. He's got one for vacation. He's got one for his dog. He's got one for the car that he wants to buy, and one for a cottage that he hopes to buy at some point. So he's got a couple of lavish ones. And you can nowadays, with online banking and all these neat features, you can change the account. If you wanted to buy that new Tesla car, change the account to be Tesla. So when the money's going in there and growing, you associate that psychology with that name to the money that you're saving. So you always are reminded of that goal and your savings are getting there. So when that opportunity presents itself for you to buy that Tesla, you're ready for it. And you're not going to the bank asking for them to give you that money. You want to have the power to make the choice. Anybody have questions regarding that before I move on?
No, but I don't have any questions, but I did want to note that it's 7:02, so I know we're a bit over time, but we may need another like 10 or 15 minutes to go through the remaining slides.
Yeah, no, I will get to the next part and I'll move it up for you. So next tool is the budgeting, setting up a budget. So I'll move quick for you guys, and then if you need me to move on or end it, let me know. So budgeting, big thing, right? Doesn't have to be complicated. It's more of like assigning dollar figures to what your day-to-day expenses. So budget might be, I want $100 for groceries, I want $10 for coffee, yada yada yada. But you do that with the $180 you got paid, or do you minus after you pay yourself first? This is where you want to pay yourself first. That's one of your expenses. So you pay yourself first, you take that $20 off that 180, and then you do the rest of the budget with the 160. So these are the ways you have to set up that budget, and that budget is normally based on a frequency set up monthly. And the reason it's set up monthly, we all know our bills come in monthly. That's why budgets are mostly set up monthly. You can set them up in any frequency that best suits your needs. You can go as finite or as you want, or as non-finite, as open as you want. You can do as broad. You can set up an annual budget, but it's how effective it is for you. You need to make them work. I suggest starting with monthly and working your way from there. I'm going to get you to move 2 slides out to, yeah, perfect. I'm gonna skip the slide for time. This was just going to be us going through costs of some of the monthly bills. So the monthly bills we would have our cell phone. You've mentioned it, transit, fun stuff that we do with our friends and family, and these are the expenses. And when you make this budget, these are expenses. When you're changing your savings, sorry, you can change these things up. So keep in mind, can you change your cell phone bill, right? Maybe your parents are paying for it, so you're lucky and you don't have to worry about that. But transit, if you wanted to save more money but you didn't have enough, maybe we can walk sometimes if you can. So you have to find ways to take, when you're budgeting with your paycheck, find ways to move money around or make sacrifices so you have that availability to save. Very, very important. It goes back to that gentleman that paid off his mortgage. It was Sean. It goes back to when he paid off his mortgage. He made sacrifices to be able to have the options. Now he's laughing at it. So the last life hack, next slide, is setting goals, right? So see the goal, explain the goal, time it. So if we wanted to buy that car, that dream item, or whatever it is, we have to see it, right? So if I'm going to go to that Tesla. If you're buying that Tesla car, you're going to see the visuals. You might have pictures of it, posters of it, images on your phone. You always visually see it there and see yourself in it. Now you have, the next part is you have to explain it, right? Like, so do you understand how much the Tesla costs? So you're researching it, right? If you know more about the item that you're trying to save for, or what you're saving for, whether it be that car and the costs associated with it, the better chances are of you hitting that. And then the last thing is timing it. So are you going to have it by the end of the month, or is it going to take 2 years to save it? Right. So if you're planning to save $1,000 over this year, like you needed $1,000 by 1 year from now, simple math, we need to save about over 12 months, about just over $80 to get to that $1,000 goal. Right. So timing helps you realize what the savings goal needs to be. So that then you can adjust it. So you either adjust one, how much you save to get to that time frame, or you might have to realize and adjust your time frame and push your time frame out to lower the monthly goal. So this is how you turn your goal into reality, by seeing it, explaining it, and doing research on it for yourself, understanding its costs, and then having a fixed time frame for it. Very, very important. So this is the life hack part 3. So I'm going to skip a couple of slides here to speed up. So, okay, so I'm going to show you, yeah, here we'll stop on that one. Perfect. This one will be interest, or different ways you can earn money on your money that you're saving. So interest is interesting thing. We've all heard about it on probably a lot of Canada Savings bonds, or maybe your parents told you back in their day you used to get 15% interest on things. On our day, screen is a little bit more realistic. If we save $1,000 today, we earn 2% on that. 2% of 1,000 is 20. At the end of the year, we get $1,020. Now, year 2, at 2% interest, you get a little bit of a compounding factor. So I get you to move to the next slide. So when you're saving things, this is where time frame is important too, because then you learn how to save and have your money work for you while it's working. Most banks will give you interest for money that's sitting around. You can go to the investing in different assets and so forth afterwards, but this is here where you see the compounding difference, because in your second year, you're getting 2% on $1,020 now, not that 1,000. So you see the increase there by not getting just another 20 bucks. You get the interest of the additional 20 there, which gives you that extra 40 cents. Might not seem like a lot, but it compounds and adds up too as well. Okay, so I think I've skipped through a bunch there quickly to wrap up. So I'm gonna just go through a little bit of wrap up here of what we kind of went through, right? So part one, or wrap up, it's not how much time, it's not how much you have, it's how you manage it. We remember Sharon? Sharon's one who won the 10.5 in 9 years. And remember, Sean, he paid it off in 3, right? So it's not how much money you have, it's how you manage it. Because Sean had less money than Sharon, and Sean seems a little bit further ahead in the game at this point because he made the right decisions. Every choice you make takes you closer or further away from your goal. So this is where save today gives you that choice tomorrow, right? So remember that coffee example, right? Where if you choose to save or cut back or change things, it gives you that option to have that money later to make that decision. Perfect one was the one that's Shannon mentioned, where she put money aside so she had the option for the insurance to pay it out in full or go monthly. Next one is no matter what your situation is, you can start saving today, and that goes back to the life hacks, right? So saving is better than saving something is better than saving nothing, right? And this is where we're going to get into paying yourself first, using the right tools, and using the set goal, which was who reminds me what that is, the set goal. I'm going to ask that one last question here, because each one stands for something for set. It was only like 3 slides back, I think. Nobody? Not that boring. You need to see it first. There you go. Explain it, and that's the research and understanding of it, and that's understanding the costs. Seeing it as having that visual representation, and that's where you go back to the tools, having the right tools, because if you set up that savings account and then name it my vacation account, it really brings it to reality to you, and then having the right time frame aside for that goal that you want to hit. So that's pretty much the end of it here. I just wanted to wrap up for you. I got tons of time left over. Thanks for all of you taking the time here. Thanks for organizing it, and thanks for Diane in the background doing the logistics. But I have time if you guys want to sit and poke my brain or ask me as many questions. I can stay on as long as you need. But yeah, let me know. But it was great with you guys today. On there too, the very last slide, you'll have you can scan me, or there's the web thing there. And if you wanted to find out more about the sessions or provide feedback with a session regarding what happened with myself, you have the link and the QR code there too as well if you wanted to. So if anybody would like to keep me on and ask me questions, I'm here for you. But thank you.
Now's the time, friends. Usually you have to pay for this.
Yeah, or book an appointment. Which right now we're pretty booked solid since COVID, nonstop. And yeah, Shannon, I can answer any of your questions too if you had anything that you wanted to like poke my brain at, and then I can share. But if anybody has anything relative or questions about, like, I don't know, net worth, cash flow, any of these things, if you wanted background knowledge on your RESPs or any of those things, or how to invest, sure, I can throw any knowledge you want.
or maybe if no one has questions, maybe we can just see what folks learned and what's a useful tool that you'll take away from this presentation that Julian just made for us. Maybe we can start with Marissa.
I like the coffee example also really does help me reflect on my own spending on things that are not necessarily needs, and also setting timed goals in order to like accumulate more money.
That's a very good one, and I'm going to emphasize that one. The time frame is helps you realize what it is, because a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm going to save up for that car and I'm going to buy that car later. Like, okay, cool. Which car? How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take you to save? And they're like, I don't know. I'm just going to save for it. It's not a very clear plan, right? And that's where you have to use that set principle. So timing is key, and that's where you really bring that into realization. Because we can all dream and visualize that thing we want, or that house we want to live on, or that family we want to be part of. We can all dream that and visualize it. But now, do we have the right tools in place, so the bank accounts and the ability to save? And then do we have the time frame set up for it? But no, thanks for that, Marissa.
Yes, thanks, Marissa. And how about you, Arisha? Any things that really helped you understand the principle of saving that you're going to carry forward?
Yeah, I think what Julian just said in the set goal slide, those were really interesting, especially the role of time and the importance of saving and making goals in general. That is really interesting and something I will keep in mind in the future.
Yes, Arisha, very important to set those goals. Not only with finances, is like some of your personal aspirations too. One of the things I do as a leader at RBC, I lead a pretty big team of individuals. I have to help them figure out their goals and get them to set their own goals. A lot of people think myself as a manager or leader, I tell people what to do. I don't tell any of my staff what to do, unless it's disciplinary. But I don't tell any of my staff what to do. I get them to realize what they want to do, and if it aligns to where they're at, and they figure out their goals, they define it, and they define the time frame. And I'm just there to say, is that reasonable? Does that make sense? Did you think of this? Was that reasonable? Because a lot of people, when you try to set up goals, you're like, you know what? I can save for that Tesla in 1 year. It's not necessarily going to happen, right? It might be 2 to 3 years. So sometimes that realization is great. Thank you for that.
Great. Marissa's just saying that she has to leave. So thank you so much, Marissa, for your time.
Bye, Marissa.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Alrighty, and now Eric, and then we can all say goodbye to one another. Since no one seems to have any questions. Eric, what's something you've taken away from the presentation?
Right, so thank you so much for this workshop, Julian. I found everything was really inspiring and really helpful for my knowledge and thinking. I think life is really difficult. Everything costs money, a lot of money, and so I think as a musician, like there's not a lot of jobs. Like you don't have a job, and so if one has a little bit of money, then they should save it. As you mentioned, to save now and basically use it later for a better reason and a better cause. So I think saving is really important. So I think I took away a lot of good information from this. Thank you so much. And see you hopefully in the concert hall soon.
No, that'd be great. No, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Eric. No, that'd be good. I'd love to see you there. And then that part too, I'm just gonna touch base on that for everybody, is when you understand your job and how your source of income comes from, whether it be regular, those pieces there, that is another reason too to understanding your inflow of cash. So if you understand your inflow of cash, of where it's coming from, you'll know how to save too, for times when you're not going to have those inflows, right? So if you're going to go into that sort of business, you might have a very irregular income stream. So you're going to need to know how to budget those lump sums that come in. You might be like, all right, Eric, for the show tonight, we're giving you $15,000. It's a lot of money. You can spend that quick. You could be like that lady from Hamilton that blew the 10.5 really quick. Or you know you need to budget that because the next show night might not be for 2 months, right? So that's where knowing your source of income too will help you get that budgeting right. So it's understanding it. And yeah, the presentation today was more, it was talking about some stuff. I wanted to leave a lot of numbers out and have it more of like a flowing conversation and to learn from that. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julian. I found it to be informative. I personally grew up watching like a lot of Gail Voss Oxlade, like for those of you who are not my age, like she is a money management, like I don't know, she is very straightforward and blunt. And so she provided like a lot of like tips that like if you just don't make enough money, you have to either find more money or or limit your expenses and your spending. So she really does bare bones like day-to-day economics. And so I found that's kind of like where I kind of grew up financially on the Slice channel. So that's why I have like, these little like tips and tricks. But I think all of these things are really, really worthwhile that Julian mentioned to exercise in your day-to-day life, because you decrease hardship. You'll have a lot more opportunities to be flexible with yourself and think a bit more abundantly about the things you have, so you don't feel stressed or limited. It's about money management. It's not about how much money you have. So I think like that's the best, and that's the key thing to kind of realize here is when I was working at Home Depot and when I was working like full time in a nonprofit job, like it didn't make a difference how much money I made. It was all about how low are my expenses and trying to really make sure that I wasn't like living outside of my means, essentially. So and that's the best way to stay happy, because you need the money to kind of get by as a tool. So I hope folks kind of appreciate all of that, and I'm happy that we had this time this evening with you, Julian. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I enjoy the time with you guys, and I'll leave you with one more little thing, right? Because you guys think everything costs money. I'm going to turn that on you and get you to think a little bit differently. Everything costs time. Because for you to earn that money, it costs your time. So maybe for a fun exercise, and I've done this in another seminar, next time you are budgeting for something and it costs $5,000, so you know it's $5,000, we can figure that out. How long did it take you to earn that? And then break it down into hours. So instead of it costing you 5,000, it might have cost you 130 hours of your time. And then it really shows you the life balance as opposed to the cost of dollar figure. You bring it back to your life instead of. So that's a different seminar, but it's a good train of thought. So just throw it out there for you guys. If you guys don't have any more questions, I'll let Shannon take the rest.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week and the rest of the summer. I'm not sure when the next like workshop will be from One City, but I know folks are transitioning, getting ready for their first year of post-secondary school. We're here to help with any questions you might have. Please shoot Diane, Mr. Wallace, or Will Wallace, myself, anyone from the team an email if you have any questions about anything related to these first few weeks and how to navigate the post-secondary landscape. Thank you. Thanks, Arisha.
Thanks, Arisha, too. Thanks, Eric.
Take care, everyone.